It's not like we didn't know you guys needed this information.
We wanted to show off a lot of this right from the get-go.
We just never had the resources to change that Flash UI. We basically had our hands tied. We were happy with it at the beginning. The problem is that
everything that was iterated on throughout the course of the mining systems being developed was not always being conveyed back in time to the original setups that we had. So we knew, for example, that we were adding volatile cargo and consumables, and yet what that actually ended up resulting in was that a lot of the backers were sort of theory crafting a lot of this stuff to try and figure out what exactly it was they were dealing with. Players couldn't even see what was directly in their cargo holds, which we felt was something that we could also amend.
We changed it now to building blocks, which is so much easier. First of all, it's a lot cleaner and a lot easier to read. It's going to react a lot better with higher brightness conditions, and every other designer can learn to use it and just go ahead and make tweaks and changes to it. So in 3.12, we're going to get this new Streamlined UI.
The flight UI, for example, we felt that we could provide at least some of the flight UI information, such as your throttle speed and your current velocity, which means that there'll be no nasty surprises like I'm in decoupled mode and I don't realize it, and I'm drifting and I don't know why. Anything else that was catching players out, such as accidentally flying into the ground when trying to mine a deposit. So we felt that was kind of helpful to have.
Besides this one, we added now the functionality where you can see which consumables you have equipped on your ship. At a quick glance, you see icons for them, you see which ones are active at this moment, how long they have before they expire, how long they will take, what's the cooldown. So you get to see all this information. You don't just have to imagine how it works and hope that it does like you imagine it.
In addition to that, we also felt that the readability of what you were actually mining was not 100% where it could be. We had the cargo hold element in there, which originally was just an SCU readout and the progress bar of 0 to 100%. And what we ended up feeling would be beneficial to the player is to be able to see what's actually in your cargo hold. So we have now a new component in the UI that not only shows you what is in there, but actually updates in real time.
Again, very similar to this, we added the functionality of viewing whether something is volatile in there and whether there's a danger.
And this is one of the things that we weren't really showing off properly in the UI, and we now are. So volatile cargo in your cargo hold component will be highlighted in red, so that you really see that you've got that in your cargo hold at any point. Beneath that is a volatile cargo display, which will show you the exact percentage of health from 0 to 100%, as well as the ETA on the time it will collapse, and the timer will count down again in real time and will update whenever you take a bump as well. And then finally, another thing that we added to this was there's actually a Jettison message as well, which we're now properly conveying that your cargo has been jettisoned when the Jettison cargo button has been pressed. We hope this will sort of alleviate a lot of the confusion that the backers were experiencing.
They don't have to go through a hustle. It should not be a struggle for them to understand what's happening in the mining process.
And we're hoping that it will mean that players have a better time with the mining system in general, that they will get more out of it, make more money out of it, and just generally have more fun with it.
There's a lot of exciting UI work coming this quarter, beginning with the revamped mining and cargo interfaces we just showed you, the refinery deck interfaces coming online towards the end of the quarter, and an overhaul to the long-awaited manufacturer-based ship HUDs that we'll start showing you next week. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and check in on some of the smaller updates from teams around the world in this week's Sprint Report. Always looking for ways to optimize and improve performance, the lighting team is going back and taking a look at some of the Verse's older ships in an effort to reduce the resource cost of lighting within their cockpits, and doing so all while maintaining or even improving the overall visual look. They do this by applying many of the lessons the team has learned throughout Star Citizen's continuing development. And once things are more performative and their looks are brought up to current standards, the team will then begin additional work on integrating the lights from individual button presses in the upcoming fully physicalized dashboards, as well as updating the transition effects between different power states, like from the auxiliary to the fully empowered. Overall, it can be very easy to get carried away when lighting an asset or location and unnecessarily blow past your resource budget, which is why the team is also going back to one of the most immoderate resource hogs among all ships in the Origin 600i. Now, it didn't take long after applying recent techniques for artists to reduce the 600i's lighting resource footprint by a factor of 10, which then allowed for the addition of new runtime probes throughout the ship, meaning all those open areas will now be properly affected by and reflective of the universe around them. The weapons concept team have finished a sprint on developing new non-lethal ordnance for Star Citizen and Squadron 42, including this taser-like stun gun from Preacher Armaments, where you can see how the side panels would expand out before discharging its electron payload, as well as the upcoming Pure Life Med Gun, an up-close and personal beam weapon that utilizes a cartridge of healing serum to treat both NPC and players alike. Following up on the new Volatile Cargo UI features we discussed earlier in the show, the props team have been working on 3 new styles of valuable, yet quite dangerous cargo items for future gameplay, including damage-sensitive items you should probably carry very carefully. Time-sensitive items, meaning you have to get them where they're going as quickly as possible, and then a new quantum-sensitive cargo item that means you're probably going to want to keep a low profile and maybe take the long way around. Meanwhile, the VFX team have been working on updated chaff effects to go along with recent code changes that are all a part of the in-progress revamp to missiles we'll talk about later in the quarter. Now, this work-in-progress visual exploration will continue to evolve as we test more sparkly elements and continue to dial in the approach we want to take while simultaneously working to separate its look visually from the also in development flat cannon weapons for capital ships and space stations. Of course, it's been a while since we've checked in on the team's work in fire propagation, and, well, they might be having a little too much fun at the moment. What you're seeing here is what's called a visual target test, and this is separate from the code work that we've shown in the past. The purpose here is to see what's possible visually with the current shader and graphics tech that's already in place. This looks pretty good, but more importantly, it's allowed the team to identify areas of much wanted improvement that's still needed, like the glow and emissives from heated surfaces, the quality and density of soot in the air, a more varied mix of flame types based on the surface the fire is emitting from, and more. In locations news, artists that recently finished their work on cargo decks have begun to move over to 3.12's upcoming refinery deck add-ons for space stations. As they further explore the visual style here, it was decided to introduce more soft body elements where appropriate, seen here in early roughs on some of the pipe systems and insulation materials. You can expect us to follow along with the continuing progress of refinery decks throughout the remainder of this quarter. Artists have also taken a pass at some of the existing derelicts in-game, like this Starfarer crash, to update the look more in line with what we might expect from a long-damaged and abandoned vehicle. The smaller tasks like these are usually reserved for the downtime that can sometimes occur at the end of sprints, or when other scheduled work is temporarily blocked by technical or resource issues. Overall, it's a great way to keep artists engaged while simultaneously working down the smaller tech debt issues that can often build up in a team's backlog. Finally, in ship-to-station docking news, with the concept we last showed you now approved, designers have begun the process of whiteboxing the actual locations where these arms and collars and docking hubs will go on the existing space stations. Now, the easiest thing to do would probably be to stick these things out at the farthest reaches of the stations, but there was a feeling here that would make the stations feel too disconnected and spread out, and we were very keen to create as many dynamic views as possible for those within the stations of the massive ships outside, while also minimizing the amount of downtime foot travel the players would have to make if we just set the hangars at those farthest reaches. What you're seeing here is by no means their final placements, but as stated, explorations of potential options that must now be weighed by the various teams for their relative benefits and detriments. But one thing's for certain, Ship-to-station docking is on its way to the Star Citizen Precision Universe, and it looks like the wait is gonna be worth it. So what did we learn about this week? Well, we learned that Building Blocks continues to make addressing the feedback and considerations of players easier and more effective for designers and programmers alike. That it's never too late to go back and optimize or improve on the things that have come before. And that the VFX team isn't going to be happy until the entire universe is on fire. This is fine. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you next week.